Welcome back to the Week in Review. We can talk about those races all we want, but the real talk and the real action is November 8th, so please go vote on November 8th and make a difference. Joining me now is Tony Miller, who's the Acting Secretary of State. Good to have you, Tony. And also is Daniel Moses, who's the Green Party candidate for Lieutenant Governor. It's good to have you as well.
It's good to be here, Bill.
Daniel, Green Party, first of all, what is the Green Party?
The Green Party is the American manifestation of a green political movement that now exists as a party in 74 countries around the world, based on the understanding that there is an inextricable connection between the ecological matters of social justice, grassroots democracy, nonviolence, and feminism. Those are our underlying principles, and we are committed to an entirely different approach to looking at politics and political economy.
Now, you're running for Lieutenant Governor. Gray Davis and Kathy Wright are the other two, senator, state senator, and the other one is I guess he's controller, right? Right, and has been for 8 years. How do you break through that reality and get your message out?
Well, part of the reality of the current political situation has been discussed on this program today. People are turned off, to quote the Acting Secretary of State. They're turned off, they have tuned out. My impression is that the reason they have done this is because they feel there is an almost total absence of content and relevance in political action and political discourse today, that issues are not being discussed, that the realities of people's lives are not being addressed. That's what the Green Party is committed to. That's what my candidacy is committed to do. I would be interested in using the Lieutenant Governor's seat on the Board of Regents and the State University Board of Trustees to change the way that system is administered, to begin the encouragement of the teaching of nonviolence in all our schools, starting right in the first grade, to break the cycle of violence, to change the direction of economic development from corporation-based economic development to community-based economic development. There are a lot of steps that have already been taken by communities to do this. We would like to encourage this, and we see that the political system, which is focused on taking money from big donors, is not likely to produce this, and that people are turned off in part because the elections are controlled by money. We think the elections ought to be controlled by issues and by candidates speaking to the issues, and that's what I intend to do in the course of this campaign. And I welcome the opportunity to come here to this place, because it's not so easy for third-party candidates to get a hearing, and that's what we see. Every reason why there should be open access to television, that the public airways supposedly operated in the public interest, should be asked to dedicate a certain amount of time to allow all legitimate candidates to present their programs and their policy suggestions. There's nothing in the way of this except the absence of political will to do it, and I think it could be changed.
By political will to do it, and you think it can be changed, how should it be changed? Who's going to do it? Who's going to make these broadcasters, like in LA where you got 7 of them, who spend all their time with OJ, to spend something on something else like the election November 8th?
Well, I think if all the parties agreed this would be a good idea, if all the voters wrote and telephoned and said, we want to know what the candidates think, we don't care what they look like, we don't care how much money they spend on advertising campaigns masquerading as election news, we would like to know the content of their campaign, that sufficient pressure could be put on the Congress or on whatever federal agency controls the FCC to see that this was clearly in the public interest and it could be done. I cannot accept the idea that there are legal impediments to this which are insurmountable.
In other words, if the FCC, since they get a license from the FCC, it is the public airwaves said, you're going to have to create X hours of product out there that deal with the issues and the candidates, that would force them to do that.
Absolutely, and this would reduce the effect of big money in campaigns, because all the candidates would know that everybody was going to have a chance to put the content of the substance of what they were talking about, and it wouldn't have to be simply 30-second packages of images.
Dick?
Well, I had a question for the Green Party candidate. Are you talking at all about 187 and the impact?
Yes, we are.
Well, what are you saying?
We're saying, first of all, that we're opposed to it because we consider it to be mean-spirited and misguided. We would like to look at the largest possible context. Where do the immigrants come from? What is the role of the United States, for instance, in Central America, in creating conditions which produced huge influx of immigrants into the United States? Their role, for instance, in El Salvador, in Guatemala, the support for military regimes which destroyed the civilian life of their country and which added to the large numbers of immigrants from those countries coming here. Also, Southeast Asian immigrants are, in many cases, they're here as a result of American military pressure in their area. So,
Do you believe in an open border situation, or should we enforce our borders?
well, I think we'd have to have a lot more time to discuss what you mean by an open border.
Well, I mean, do you favor, you know?
We have a relatively open border now between the United States and Canada and the United States and Mexico. We don't complain about Canadians coming to America, and I think we need to at least acknowledge that there may be a trace of a historical racist attitude in some of the response that's coming towards Mexican immigrants to the United States.
Well, I just wanted consideration about whether or not what vote you got last time.
This is our first statewide race.
First statewide race.
Yes.
And what do you think you'll be pulling in this race? What's your hopes here?
I'm not inclined to make predictions. I think that if people can hear what we're talking about, if we get a chance to put our message and our proposals and our approach out to people, we could surprise a lot of people, because a lot of people in the electorate are very dissatisfied with the options they have now, and if they knew about the Green Party option, I think we will do all right.
But realistically, to do that today without change in what the FCC laws are, what stations are going to provide, other than this program, how to get your message out?
Well, I am taking every opportunity to meet with people, to meet with organizations, to meet with the press. There is a large green movement in the state of California, across the board, in social justice, environmental organizations, and others who have been working, doing the work of the green movement. I would like to encourage people from those organizations to understand that a Green Party candidacy is a vehicle for expressing and supporting their views and their priorities. For instance, we're supporting the single-payer health care initiative, Prop 186. We have lots of people in the party who are working on that. We want the people in that campaign to understand the congruency between our ideas about social justice and the idea of this initiative regarding universal health care, just for an example.
Tony, what is your opinion of the Green Party, other offices in the state that they're running for?
Well, we're running for numerous offices at local administrative levels, and we are running for 2 other statewide offices. We have Margaret Garcia opposing Mr. Miller, and we have Barbara Blanc as a candidate for U.S. Senate.
When you look at yourself running against Gray Davis and Kathy Wright, specifically those two, what's the differences, and why should somebody vote for you?
Well, I guess I would look at a vote for me as a protest vote against the status quo and the stagnation of status quo politics, and to look at the problems of California in a much broader, much more ecological context. In our view, there is no economy without ecology. Everything we do that's economic is based on some ecological reality. And we are looking at a whole approach to economics which is focused on sustainability. You know, Native American teaching and the teaching of indigenous people all over the world, to which the Greens hold, we consider that we have a great debt to them, it insists that you need to think 7 generations ahead when you make serious decisions. That's the kind of thinking that ought to underlie our economic planning, that the focus ought to be in communities, and the understanding ought to be that the ramifications go far beyond the immediate 90-day balance sheet.
All right, now saying this, our air is filthy in LA. We don't have electric cars here. And our water is filthy. In fact, half of the sightings in the United States last year were in Southern California. If you were in office, what would you do about both the water and the air?
Well, I don't know how much I could do as Lieutenant Governor, because I don't know that there is direct access to the levers of power which deal with those issues. However, sitting as the chair of the Economic Development Commission, I could redirect, or at least encourage the redirection of thinking about what economic development means. Right now we think about it simply as talking about jobs. And I think that we need to look at the length of the work week and the very definition of what work is about. Does it have something to do with community, with personal fulfillment, with some sense of development as a human being, or is it simply punching a clock and receiving a time check? These are not questions which are asked very often in political discussion. I don't know how people respond to them, but I would like to have the opportunity to bring forward this point of view and to participate in a discussion which reached beyond the claims of the current political discourse.
There was a poll just the other day that said that the American people really are looking toward third parties now, that for the first time there's a real interest in third parties. Was that?
Yes, I took some encouragement from that. Yes.
Well, on that note, take more encouragement, because, you know, we will become, like I think a lot of the other nations, a more pluralistic party system as time goes on, and we'll see. I want to thank both of you gentlemen for being with us. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back.